Secretary of State, I'm going to do something about that. Education, expansion of registration through voting, the National Voting Registration Act, having qualified registering people at those locations that I talked about. Now let's talk about the voting side of it. Okay, we unfortunately in Michigan are a one-day voting state. You got 1 day to vote. As I said, there's no constitutional law that says voting has to be federal 1 day. There's lots of states that have more than 1 day to vote. There's lots of countries that require more than 1 day to vote, and even if you don't vote, they will fine you if you don't vote, okay? So, Michigan, part of the voter dilution, part of the voter suppression is that we are a 1 day voting state. We don't take part in what they call early voting, which means you can have more than 1 day to vote. A week, 5 days, 2 days. And why is that a problem? We always talk about we're going into the service industry. Well, who is the service industry? I study economics and I understand the service. Service, let's take, for example, the retail service person where a lot of, with the post-industrial age manufacturing, a lot of people going into what they call low-wage retail sales. McDonald's, at the mall, working in these clothing stores. What is their work day look like? They got to get to work at 8 o'clock because they got to get there an hour before the store opens up. Okay, they may have half an hour for lunch. They get off 6, 7 o'clock. Still got to get home. Well, if the voting polls don't open up to 7, they close at 8 o'clock. Where in the world do these people have an opportunity to vote? And we're talking about a large percentage of the low-income service industry people that are in this city. So the so-called 7 to 8 hour window for voting is, in my opinion, voter suppression, voter dilution. Okay, so now absentee ballots. Absentee vote is a form of early voting. But guess what? In this state, we have this list of restrictions that you have to qualify for. I'm going to be out of the state on a certain day. I'm over 55 or 60 years old. Then I can have absentee vote. There is no constitutional basis for any restriction for absentee voting. We should have absentee voting that anybody within that 45-day period, when they issue it out, no matter what your situation is, you should be able to fill out an absentee ballot and vote. Now, we have a federal law, the Help America Vote Act, which let's talk about machines. The machines in the urban areas, there are not enough machines. They're breaking down. There's not enough polling spaces. We got long lines. People are being discouraged when they get there, even being asked voter ID questions when they get there, citizens questions when they get there. Well, why are we having less polling places? Why is it when you go into certain communities you have plenty of machines, and other polling places you have less, and you have lines in one location and no lines in the other? Okay, so in area voting, I'm for same-day voting. In other words, I'm for same-day registration. You can walk in on the day of voting, you can register and vote on the same day. Why are we requiring you to have been registered 45 days in advance before you vote? Folks, there's no federal constitutional right restrictions on voting, as I tried to explain to you, unless it's discrimination for race, sex, age, or poverty. So that's strictly a legislative determination. All right, so much for voting. I'm going to enhance voting, enhance registration, make it convenient for you. Hopefully, we're going to end up having more. Now, as a lawyer, I'm going to interpret the law very progressively, okay, as lawyers do. because it's all about words. And I'm going to try, even though maybe if I'm working with a Republican legislature, they may be saying, Godfrey, you can't do that. And I'll be saying, well, sue me. Okay? And like as a lawyer, I don't have any problem with being sued. See, I understand the legal process. That's why I think it's important to have a lawyer at this moment in history to understand that and not have that fear about being sued. I ain't even concerned about being impeached. I think it's almost like, that will bring the issue to the forefront for the people. That will educate far more people than I could ever do if I forced that kind of showdown, which I'm certainly ready to do because I'm not scared. Okay, I've been scared, but this does not scare me. Okay. All right. Other thing, campaign financing. We're being flooded with all this money. This Secretary of State has never sanctioned anybody for a campaign violation that I know of in recent years. So you have the recent decision of Citizen United. It's a legal the difference between an expenditure and a contribution. To the average layperson, they're the same thing. But to lawyers and judges, we have created this legal technicality. A contribution, there is a cap on how much money you can give. And you notice Republicans just raised that to $6,800, which is more than the federal contribution limit. Think about that. The state allows individuals to give more money to a candidate from a contribution point of view than the federal government does. That tells you what this legislature is about in terms of wanting to flood their candidates with money, because guess what? Most Republicans have more money than the average Democrat does, and therefore corporate entities are supporting that. Expenditure, there is no limit. So with the recent Supreme Court ruling in the Citizens United, and the recent one right after that, you have a situation now where these so-called super PACs can spend as much money as they want on a particular candidate, but they have to designate that. Well, as a lawyer, I'm going to look, as like I said, a new sheriff, a new prosecutor in town, I'm going to be looking very closely as to whether that really is an expenditure on behalf of that candidate or whether it's a contribution. And if I can make determinations that I feel it's a contribution, I can sanction that, stop that money, cut it off. Of course, as far as I'm concerned, I would like to have public financing of candidates. I would like to have it that way, but I know that that's not possible. Now, so I've talked about registration, talked about voting, talked about campaign finance. Let me turn to the last two, and then I'll open it up for questions. Privacy rights. Another thing you all need to realize is the Secretary of State has a lot of personal information on you. Your address, your telephone number, your social security number, where you live, what insurance company you got. Well, they provide that information to commercial enterprise. For example, insurance companies. And what do the insurance companies do with it? They raise your insurance rates. In other words, they take public information about you from the Secretary of State, give it to a commercial, for-profit organization, Allstate, State Farm. These are commercial entities. These are not public entities. These are for-profit. They give them that information. Okay? I'm all for the internet. I'm all for using the internet to spread knowledge. I'm not talking about restricting that. What I'm talking about is restricting uses of the data or your private information. We're now moving to a situation where we're having privatizing of parking tickets. So a lot of cities are privatizing their parking organization. Well, guess what? You don't pay a parking ticket. Next thing you know, your license is suspended. So now we're going to be giving private information about you to the parking people, and they're going to be exchanging information with the state. Towing companies. Tow your car, exchange information with the state. You don't pay the towing fee, connect it to the parking ticket. Next thing you know, your license suspended. Here comes responsibilities fees. Boom, boom, boom. You can see how what is viewed as kind of an innocuous thing of giving your information to the Secretary of State can really hurt you in your pocket. I'm going to take a very close look at that and make sure that those usages are within reason and are not used to exploit people. And then finally, I want to be a consumer advocate for you. I want to reduce fees. Why are you paying, for example, something like a license plate? Why are we paying these high fees for license plates every single year for a little sticker that you stick on your license plate? Lots of states don't do that. You got Texas, where it allows you to pay your license plate every 2, 3, 4 years when you renew your license. So there's costs that can be reduced. The other thing is, you know, she's cut down the number of Secretary of State's office with the argument that we're going online. Well, there's a lot of people who don't have access to the internet. There's a lot of people who are not literate with the internet. And even when you go online to look at the requirements for you to go online, there's restrictions on whether or not you can use the online service. So the idea that, oh, this is great, we can reduce efficiency, we can reduce the number of offices because now we're going to use technology, now we're, you know, it's going to make everybody, it's going to make it easier and lesser lines. That's not what's happening. So the online technology is not the simple answer that it may appear to be on its face. So I certainly want to be efficient. I certainly want to provide services at a cost-effective way. My idea is what I like to call the super center idea. And this helps economic development. It creates jobs. Like Detroit, we got all this land. You know, we go into Secretary of State over here on West Grand Boulevard. You're lined up like cattle. You maybe only have 1 or 2 bathrooms. You're not enough seats, and you probably get a parking ticket by the time you come out. I had a lady from Westland. We had somebody here from Westland? Westland. Went in to get a title transfer. 4 hours, she told me. 4 hours for a title transfer. But in the super center, we'll have 30, 40 lines, 30, 40 employees there. We will build buildings in urban areas like Detroit, Saginaw, create economic development, construction jobs, hire more people to get you in and get you out. Okay? So I want to get back to the idea, we don't have to have more Secretary of State's offices, but we got to have Secretary of State's offices that are large enough to deal with the volume of people that come in to get them out, in and out. So reduction of fees, improve quality and service is what I want to do. Now, that's a big task, folks, what I've just laid out to you as Secretary of State. But that's my vision of what I want to do. But I can't do that unless I get elected. Okay, so now it's the time and the moment that we've got to get the people out to vote. Each and one of you have got to reach around, and I know all of you are committed people, so I know you all are going to do that. But you're going to have to do more in order for it to happen, because we have a Republican governor, Republican lieutenant governor, Republican Secretary of State, Republican Attorney General, Republican Supreme Court, Republican House of Representatives, Republican Senate. And then we wonder why we got the emergency manager law. We wonder why we got violation of collective bargaining rights. We wonder why taxation of seniors, taxation of pensioners, and you know, corporations getting tax cuts, defunding of education. All of these issues are front and center. And unless we get people out to vote, we can't make a difference. Right. I always like to say at the end, yes we can, yes we must, yes we will. Right. Win. Yes we can, yes we must, yes we will. When Democrats vote, we win. When Democrats vote, we win. When Democrats vote, Godfrey Dillard wins. Thank you so much.